I think for me, in many ways, it started as a sophomore in college. I had a freshman year filled with chemistry, calculus, and honestly, I just wanted a class where I didn't have to think. So I signed up for Sociology 101. I figured I'd read some books, write a few papers, get an easy A. And little did I know I would get an assignment that would last the rest of my life. You see, one of the first books on the top of our reading list was Jonathan Kozel's Savage Inequality. Some love to Jonathan Kozel. You ever watch a TV show or read a book, and some of the circumstances that come up, those coincidences, and you're like, I feel like this person wrote this book for me. They researched my life and then found some details and inserted it there just to hit home a lot harder. Well, as it turns out, I was born in St. Louis. I was raised in the suburbs of Chicago. And so as Kozel starts out his book, and I'm reading, he starts out his book in East St. Louis. Now, when I was born in St. Luke's Hospital, my family drove a few miles west. If they had driven a few miles east, I would have been born in East St. Louis. And he details out the fact that it's a city and a school system failing students at alarming rates. 90% of kids in some schools were dropping out. And then I just couldn't read that then and step away. And I think now I'm like, oh, this is not new. I see this stuff every single day. But then I hadn't been pushed to think outside of my circumstances in those first 20 years. And all of my conversations and thoughts about why things were the way they were, if someone didn't graduate from high school, well, they were different than me. If someone wasn't in college with me, they were just different than me. If someone was in a different neighborhood, there must be some difference there that separated me from them. And I wasn't pushed to think beyond my own small experience. And then, as if to follow me in my life, Kozel then, in chapter 2, goes up to the suburbs of Chicago. And he starts naming high schools that I was well aware of. We're talking about schools where 90% of students were on track for a 4-year college, where a college counselor was actually with a student from a freshman year to a senior year, ensuring that instead of at every turn there was failure, we're talking about every turn there's success. And this was my moment. I sat there reading his book, and it hit me. Aaron, there was this question begging, Aaron, why are you different? Why are you so lucky in this equation? And it was, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Matrix. When Morpheus sits there with a little pill and he says to Neo, if you take this pill right now, your whole world's going to change. Nothing will ever be the same. And I felt like Kozel was challenging me to take that pill to answer that question. Because in that moment, I had to confront the fact that I was a white male, and the fact that I was sitting in that school had probably less to do with my own determination than the society that was around me. Those questions of who I was and why I was there, what made me special, what made me different, went with me for the rest of my life, right? So fast forward a few years later, I got a job out of college. I was working in a research and development laboratory outside of Chicago. And where I worked, we were 90% Latino and Spanish speaking. And I remember they were rolling out this big, huge new 401k program. I was a non-traditional corner. I didn't go into the core, right? I was working in this army, right? So, non-traditional. So, I remember, the guys selling all these insurance and mutual funds. They're like, you could be a millionaire by the time you're 65. Get in now, you're 22. And everybody around me, we were all about the same age, And I remember talking to all the folks in the plant, and I'm like, oh, are you gonna do this? We're all gonna be millionaires. Let's all sign in. Let's go. And I remember there was one young girl, Rosita, right? I'll call her. And she said, I'm not going to do it. I'm like, today's the last day. We got to get in on this. And she's like, that's, Aaron, she said, that's not for me. And I said, what do you mean that's not for you? You don't want that for you, for your family, for your future? Who doesn't want that? And she looked at me and she said, Aaron, Rosita's not my real name. I said, Rosita's not your real name. She said, no, that's the name that's on my Social Security card. And so now in this moment, as I'm looking across this table, I don't know what to say. And as I reflect back on where I had come to in that moment, with these conversations about difference and like what made me special, what made me different, in that moment, I actually had a weird commonality. You see, I had just had a conversation with my grandmother, who was born in Greece, about her brother. And before anybody had come over to this country, he was gung-ho. He was like, look, I'm going to do this. He tried to raise some money, couldn't get enough. So what he did is he snuck down to the ports in Athens, found a ship, jumped aboard, crawled into the cargo hold, and spent that whole entire trip from the Atlantic Ocean and came to the United States. He was snatched up when he got here, sent back, and he did it again. You said excellent, right? And as I stood across the table from Rosita, all I could think of, is this a commonality or not? Because why is it judged so differently when a European American comes across in a story of the American dream, a story of determination, a story of grit, a story of doing what's best for your family, versus a conversation that holds words like illegal, like alien? I was bumping up against this matrix that I had found. I was bumping up against these ideas of what I had in common with people and what really made me different. And it all kind of came to a head at the end of the next summer. I remember every summer my family, my mom's Greek, my dad's Polish. It didn't work really well in the beginning. That's why they eloped to St. Louis. But every year we would have a big, huge family reunion. And so all these guys and our whole family from all of Chicago, they would all trek out to the suburbs into this big, huge forest preserve. They would pull out lawn chairs and grills, and my dad had this ridiculous, Polish eagle shirt that he would wear around, the Polish flag was flying, it's all the oompa oompa, polka music. It's ridiculous, right? Everybody's having a great old time. And I remember just after lunch, another family pulled up to their pavilion just across the street from us, and they pulled out all their lawn chairs, and they pulled out all of their grills, and they had, their, and oompa 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 music, and everybody had their flags and their t-shirts, and I felt my family look over and judge, and I looked around and I said, are we judging because those flags are Mexican flags? Are we judging because their oompa oompa trumpet music is mariachi and not polka? They aren't wearing a Polish eagle? Where we came to and where my response in that moment and how they reacted was not the important thing to me, but it was the fact that I had a response. It was like in that moment in the Matrix, right? When Neo actually sees the Matrix, he sees, even with my family, I saw all those little zeros and ones coming down. And I recognized, faced with every single one of those commonalities, we still saw a difference. And it made me realize that what we have in common, even if we have to push back skin deep, and we start to see those commonalities, it's actually how we judge and maybe misjudge those commonalities. It's how we perceive or misperceive those commonalities that actually drives us down the wrong path. So now, I think about that as I enter my classroom. I think about that as I walk down the street with my boys. Because now, as I have two little ones that walk with me wherever we go, I think about Nicholas, victory for the people, and he understands his name. And he says today, all the people's daddy? Yes, all the people. Alexander, defender of mankind. Those names now, I hope, will only turn into actions later. I hope that one day they don't have to wait 25 years to reach their matrix moment. That one day as I drip things in front of them little by little, that eventually they're going to have their Morpheus moment. where I show them their pill and say, hey, look, Nicholas, you're white. Look, Alex, you're male. And all of these these superficial differences that we might initially see, we have to push past and see those commonalities. But at the same time, as you make those connections and commonalities, we also have to understand the differences in how we perceive those commonalities. But that's where I'm at right now. Because honestly, the sociology assignment has taken me a really long time.